The Gold Rush Boomtowns. The story of America's ghost towns often begins with a single spark. A rumor of gold, a whisper of silver, or the faint glimmer of precious ore hidden in a mountain stream. In the early 1800s, across the wide stretches of the American West, the promise of wealth began to draw thousands of men and women into uncharted lands. They came with dreams in their eyes, picks in their hands, and hope that somewhere beneath the earth lay their fortune. It was in 1848, when gold was discovered at Sutter's Mill in California, that the rush truly began. The news spread like wildfire, carried by stagecoaches, by steamships, by word of mouth across taverns and town squares. By 1849, an entire wave of settlers, the 49ers as they were called, set out toward California. They came from New York, from Boston, from the farms of Ohio, and even from distant lands across the oceans. The journey was long and dangerous. Some sailed around Cape Horn, enduring months of stormy seas. Others crossed the Panama jungle, braving fever and swamps. Many more chose the land route, following wagon trails across deserts and mountains. Not all made it, but those who did arrived to a land buzzing with possibility. Almost overnight, boomtowns sprang up. What was once a quiet valley, a dry canyon, or a riverside meadow became a bustling settlement. Canvas tents appeared first, then wooden shacks, and within months, entire streets lined with saloons, general stores, blacksmith shops, and boarding houses. By day, the sounds of hammers, saws, and shouted bargains filled the air. By night, lanterns glowed through thin curtains, music spilled from saloons, and gamblers sat at rough-hewn tables, hoping for luck as strong as the miners panning the rivers outside. Yet life in these towns was never easy. Supplies were scarce, prices high. A single egg might cost a fortune, a pair of boots the wages of a week. Dust clung to every surface. Winters were bitter, summers dry and scorching. Still, hope burned brightly. Every miner believed that the next pan, the next strike, might change everything. That tomorrow, he might stumble upon the vein of gold that would turn a poor wanderer into a wealthy gentleman. These towns were not just about gold, though. They were about human dreams condensed into a single fragile place where strangers from every corner of the earth gathered, each carrying a story, a desire, a hunger. For many who arrived in California during the Great Rush, life was a strange mixture of chaos and promise. In San Francisco, the gateway to the goldfields, the population exploded. Within 2 years, it had swelled to tens of thousands. Ships crowded the harbor, abandoned by their crews who ran inland to seek gold. Wooden shacks, tents, and hastily built hotels filled the streets. The air smelled of salt water, wood smoke, and the sweat of thousands of restless men. From San Francisco, prospectors spread out into the Sierra Nevada foothills. Names like Hangtown, Nevada City, and Placerville dotted the map. Each was little more than a scattering of buildings at first, yet each pulsed with a strange vitality. In the mornings, men hurried down to rivers and creeks, shovels and pans in hand. By midday, shops opened to sell shovels, tin pans, rough trousers, and boots. By evening, the saloons came alive. Inside these dimly lit rooms, whiskey flowed freely. Some drank to celebrate a good find, many more drank to forget a day of failure. Card games filled the tables, poker, faro, blackjack, with fortunes won and lost in the space of a single night. Music from fiddles and banjos mixed with laughter, curses, and the clink of glasses. But beneath the noise, there was always the uncertainty. Few miners grew rich. Many spent weeks or months without striking anything of worth. Yet they held on, for stories spread like wildfire of lucky men who uncovered nuggets as large as fists, or veins of gold shining like threads of sunlight through rock. The boomtowns were melting pots of humanity. Men from China sailed across the Pacific, bringing with them new techniques for mining and a taste of tea and spices unknown to many Americans. Latin American miners brought songs, traditions, and resilience. Europeans, from Ireland, Germany, and Italy, mingled with Americans from every state. The result was a chaotic but fascinating blend of languages, foods, and customs. Life for women was rare but significant. Some arrived with families, tending homes, cooking meals, and providing stability amidst the chaos. Others came alone, working as laundresses, seamstresses, or running boarding houses. In towns where men outnumbered women 20 to 1, a woman could make a good living providing services far removed from mining itself. Yet with growth came lawlessness. Many towns lacked proper courts or sheriffs. Disputes over claims often ended in violence. Gambling debts led to fights. Thefts were common. Vigilante justice sometimes ruled the streets, swift, harsh, and unforgiving. Still, for every tale of violence, there were stories of camaraderie. Miners shared meals, helped repair cabins, or joined together to build churches and schools. These towns were rough, but they were alive, pulsing with the raw energy of people chasing a dream. And yet, even as the gold glittered, shadows already stretched across the future of these towns. For gold does not last forever. The veins run out. the streams dry of nuggets. As swiftly as gold brought life to the hills of California, it also discovery, rush, boom, and decline. Each new strike brought a flood of people. Each decline left behind another quiet place where the wind whispered through broken windows. The gold rush was not just a moment of wealth. It was a pattern of rise and fall that shaped the landscape of America. And as the years passed, the West became dotted with reminders of that restless search for fortune, reminders that still stand today in wood, stone, and silence. And so, as we leave behind the story of the first boomtowns, we step forward into the broader tale of America's abandoned places. Mining camps, railway towns, coal settlements, each with its own rhythm of life and its own descent into stillness. Silver and coal towns of the American West. If gold was the spark that first lit the West, silver and coal were the steady fires that kept it burning. By the mid-1800s, the frenzy of the California goldfields had begun to fade. But the hunger for wealth had not. Prospectors fanned out across mountains and deserts, searching for the next big strike. And soon, they found it, not in glittering streams, but deep within veins of silver and coal buried in stone. The silver rush begins. In 1859, in what would later become Nevada, two miners stumbled upon a discovery that changed everything. They had been chasing rumors of gold in the Sierra Nevada range. But what they found instead was something far richer, thick, blue-gray mud that clogged their pans. Annoyed, they nearly threw it away. Only later did they learn that this mud was incredibly rich in silver ore. This discovery became known as the Comstock Lode, and it unleashed a frenzy just as wild as California's gold rush. Suddenly, thousands of men flooded into Nevada. Where there had been empty desert valleys, towns sprang up almost overnight. At the heart of it all was Virginia City, a once barren slope that became a thriving metropolis of the silver boom. Within a decade, it held fine hotels, opera houses, and newspapers. Gas lamps lit the streets at night, and stagecoaches rattled in and out carrying goods, gamblers, and dreamers. It wasn't just a mining camp, it was a city of wealth, power, and spectacle. Virginia City's silver poured wealth into the entire nation. From its depths came fortunes that built mansions in San Francisco, funded railroads, and filled the pockets of some of America's wealthiest families. For a brief time, it was said, the world's attention turned to Nevada's desert mountains. Coal, the black gold. But while silver gleamed brightly, another kind of treasure was fueling America's rise. Coal, black, dirty, and abundant, became the backbone of the Industrial Revolution. In the mountains of West Virginia, Kentucky, and Pennsylvania, towns sprouted near coal seams. They were different from the raucous boomtowns of the West. These were company towns, built by coal companies to house their workers. Rows of nearly identical houses stood side by side. A company store sold everything from flour to boots, often at inflated prices. Pay sometimes came not in cash, but in company scrip, tokens that could only be spent at that store. Life in coal towns was harsh. The work was grueling, dangerous, and often deadly. Men descended into dark shafts, hacking at the rock by lantern light. Cave-ins, explosions, and black lung disease claimed countless lives. Yet families stayed, for coal meant steady work, even if the pay was meager. Children carried lunch pails to their fathers, mothers washed coal dust from clothes that never truly came clean, and entire communities lived to the rhythm of the mines. Though silver and coal seemed very different, both built towns with fierce intensity. Both drew thousands of people to places that had once been wilderness. Life in Virginia City. Virginia City was unlike the rough camps of California's early days. From the moment silver began pouring out of the Comstock lode, the town took on an air of prosperity. By the 1870s, the streets bustled with fine-dressed gentlemen and ladies in silks. Wooden boardwalks lined busy storefronts, jewelers, tailors, tobacconists, and bookshops. The sound of hammers and saws filled the air as brick buildings replaced wooden shacks. But beneath the polished surface, life was anything but simple. The mines ran deep, shafts plunging hundreds, even thousands, of feet into the mountain. Temperatures soared underground, with men laboring in suffocating heat. Water seeped constantly into the tunnels, requiring massive pumps to keep the mines dry. Explosions of dynamite echoed like distant thunder, rattling windows across town. Above ground, fortunes were made and lost daily. Stock exchanges sprang up, where shares in mining companies traded like wildfire. A lucky investor could become a millionaire overnight, but far more often, dreams collapsed in ruin. Speculation drove men to desperation, and fraud was common. Saloons and theaters thrived. The Territorial Enterprise, a newspaper famous for hiring a young writer named Samuel Clemens, better known as Mark Twain, filled its pages with tales of scandals, booms, and disasters. Opera houses brought culture to the desert, while dance halls offered whiskey, music, and escape. Yet its newspapers. Yet beneath the surface, decline had already taken root. Families moved away in search of opportunity elsewhere. Boarding houses emptied. Some businesses shut their doors. By the turn of the century, Virginia City's population had shrunk from tens of thousands to only a few thousand. The once mighty city, home to opera houses and millionaires, became another relic of a dream that had burned bright and faded fast. Today, Virginia City still stands, not entirely abandoned, but transformed into a historic town where tourists wander wooden sidewalks and peer into the shadows of a vanished age. The decline of coal towns. Coal towns followed a slower, but equally inevitable, path toward silence. For decades, coal was king. It powered steam engines, heated homes, and fueled America's growing industries. Towns thrived as long as the mines stayed open. But coal seams are not endless. When deposits ran thin, companies packed up and moved on. The houses, the stores, the schools, all built by the company, often stood empty once the last train carried coal away. Families had no reason to stay. Those who could afford it left in search of work. Those who could not were sometimes forced to abandon their homes with little more than what they could carry. By the mid-20th century, automation and changing energy needs accelerated the decline. Machines replaced men. Demand shifted to oil and electricity. Entire Appalachian towns emptied almost overnight. The echoes of these communities linger still. Wooden houses sag against the hillsides, their porches collapsing into weeds. Rusted mining equipment lies half buried in the earth. In some towns, only a cemetery remains, the headstones leaning at odd angles, silent markers of lives spent in darkness underground. Ghost towns born of industry. Whether silver in Nevada or coal in Appalachia, the pattern was the same: discovery brought hope, industry brought prosperity, and exhaustion brought silence. These towns were not failures. For a time, they thrived. They gave birth to families, friendships, and stories that shaped the nation. Their decline was not a tragedy so much as an inevitability. The earth's riches are finite, and communities built entirely upon them must one day face their limits. What remains today are ghost towns, some preserved as museums of history, others left to crumble into dust. Visitors walk through their streets and sense the lives that once filled them: the clatter of boots on wooden sidewalks, the ring of hammers in the mines, the laughter of children echoing against hills now silent. Each ghost town carries within it not just the story of decline, but the memory of ambition, courage, and endurance. They are America's monuments to impermanence, reminders that nothing lasts forever, but everything leaves a trace.